today I'm going to be taking a stab at rendering some lard. I got my first for me, cast iron skillet. I do have a few pieces that were handed down to me from family that was already pre-seasoned, and then I have my enamel coated skillets and pots as well, which I will be using to render the lard today. But this is my first new to me cast iron skillet, and so I'm really excited about learning how to season it. And in all my research, it seems that lard is the best product to use for seasoning your cast iron skillet. This is not my first time rendering fat. I have done a lot of tallow in the past, which I believe the only difference between tallow and lard is that tallow comes from cow fat, lard comes from pork fat. So I believe that's the only difference. And in fact, I want to show you, this is one of the products I made. I was able to make candles using the fat from our cattle and mixed it with essential oils. Just stick a wick in there and let it solidify. So that's nice to have on hand because you burn clean products. And nice to have for emergency situations and whatnot in the winter here. It is a simple process. It really is just chopping up your fat. I use my food processor to get it into smaller and more even chunks of fat, and then you just melt it down for hours. It's just kind of messy. It gets greasy, obviously, and it smells horrible, at least in my opinion. But the last time I did this, I was pregnant, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But I just cannot stand the smell of it. It does not have any smell once it's been rendered. So like this candle, once you render it and so it solidifies again, I don't know how that works with the process, but it has no smell to it at all anymore. So it's just the process of it. Fortunately, today is a pretty nice day, so I can open windows and not have to deal with so much of the smell. But come along with me and we will see how this works. Okay, so to make it easier to cut apart the fat, I prefer it mostly frozen. I do take it out of the freezer and let it thaw out somewhat, because if it's too frozen, it's really hard to cut apart. But if it gets warm, then it gets really gooey and messy. So I actually prefer to keep it really cold, and it just makes it a lot easier. I also believe I used to cut that apart on a plastic cutting board just because it was a lot easier to clean. Don't know what happened to that, so we're going to see how it works on a wood cutting board. I don't know if it's just going to grease it up a lot, but we'll see. So I cut it into chunks, first step, and then I put it in my food processor so the food processor can kind of finish the job. And you want to make sure you're getting mostly fat. So if you find any pieces of meat in there or anything else, you just want to carve that off. So you can see it cuts pretty easily when it's cold. And just pieces like that. And then again, we'll just let the food processor take care of the rest. So let's get this cut up and we'll get it ground up as well. Okay, you guys, so I just finished up my first little batch here for my food processor, what I could fit in there, and I'm just going to pulse it a little bit. You want to keep it even, and you definitely don't want to overdo it. It just turns into a big, mushy, greasy mess. So keep it to a minimum, and again, that's why it's nice when you keep your fat cold. Help it out here a little bit. too warm. I think I let it sit out a little too much. Okay, so this is not breaking down like I'm used to with our beef fat. So I think what I'm going to do, see, it's just getting, it's turning into mush, and that's not what I want. It should break up into, I don't know, just, it shouldn't be this wet, I guess you would say. So this is not working like I'd like, so I might have to just cut it into smaller pieces by hand. So let's move on. So if you're wondering where you can find animal fat, I think the best choice would be to contact your local rancher or farmer, or someone that raises animals in a healthy way. You definitely want your tallow which is beef fat again, you want that to come from a grass-fed and finished source, from cattle raised on pasture, open range, because that is the most nutrient-dense fat, and it's actually very, very healthy for you to cook with. So that would be ideal. Yeah, I think I just let this sit out a little too long. It's getting greasy even just in my hands. So it's probably why it didn't work in the food processor. But back to resources. Reach out, and any butcher should give your farmer or rancher their fat back with their animals. So it really is a good resource. And if you just don't have that access, I guess just go to a local butcher shop and see if they have any pork or beef fat that you can use. And I had mentioned the odor earlier, how bad I think it smells rendering fat. That isn't when you're working at it at this state, it's when the rendering process is actually taking place as the fat melts down. So, but at this point, there's no odor at all. So it really isn't easy, it's just tedious work. Okay, so cut everything up. I think my chunks are way, way, way too big. Just from what I've seen, they need to be smaller, but we're going to see how this works. Who knows? Maybe we'll find out. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to add a cup of water to it. And I don't remember, I'm going to look it up. I don't remember if I'm supposed to put a lid on it or not. Rendering lard. Card. I typed card. Okay, they are saying leave the lid off to prevent water and moisture from building up. So I guess we leave this off. So it's on low. A couple waters in there. We'll see if this works or not. We'll check it out. I'm going to put the timer on for like an hour, and we'll see if I need to change my temperature or anything like that. Wish me luck. Okay, so our fat has been on the stove for an hour, and it's been on the lowest setting. I think I'm going to turn it up one because it's just not really doing as much as I'd like it to. It is starting to melt. I have a lot more liquid in there than I did an hour ago. So it is doing something. I think I'm just going to turn it up just a smidge. And we'll check on it another hour. Okay, so it's starting to come along a lot quicker now. I did turn it up to about a 3. I think I put too much water in there. From my understanding, the boiling it'll increase to get all the moisture out, all the bubbles. It's really bubbling nicely now. So the bubbles will increase as all the moisture is coming out. but then it'll decrease again, and that's when you're kind of at your finishing spot. And all these little pieces should start to brown, and then you strain it. So it's coming along. I'm feeling like I'm having to come into the kitchen and stir a lot more, so I had to kind of change up my day and just do stuff closer to the kitchen so I can keep my eye on it a little more closely. But it's also my first time doing the lard, so that's where we're at. Okay, so the amount of bubbles is really decreasing, kind of slowing down, so I think we're getting somewhere, finally. Okay, so I really don't have any bubbles. Can you see that? So could probably go a little bit longer because I'm mainly using this for my cast iron skillet and not necessarily cooking with it. I think I'm going to call it good just because I've got to get outside and get chores going. So we'll put it through a strainer, and then I guess we just wait to see what the finished product looks like. Okay, so we have finished rendering our lard. All I have on hand is this wire mesh. It's not exactly ideal in a bowl. I've seen people use funnels and then coffee filters. The metal part of the coffee filters to strain it, which I'm sure works great. I just don't have that on hand. So I didn't have a whole lot of time preparing for this. It was just last minute when I wanted to do my my skillet. So I'm making the best of what I have. So now I'm just gonna filter this. Oh, see how this goes. After I put it in the can, I just was gonna show you this. I'm gonna put it in a jar, keep it in a jar. Let's see, this can be a bit messy. Okay, so you'll see the cracklings or pieces really melted down, and they're a nice golden brown color. And our tallow, see, this needs to be strained better. I can tell already. I can see some bits in there, or maybe I just didn't render it enough. But I'm going to transfer this into my jar, and we will see how it turns out. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a look at what I was talking about. That is what's left at the bottom, and it's a little bit in my jar. I'm not sure what that's about. I never had it with my tallow. Can you kind of see little tiny, I don't know if it's scraps or not. So I don't know if that's because I didn't do it long enough. So we're gonna have to see how this looks when it's all said and done. So my lard has set up. It's a nice, pretty, creamy white color. You saw how brown it was yesterday. And it's a nice, soft texture, which at first kind of threw me off. Again, my experiences with tallow, and that when that sets up, it is solid. So I did look it up, and I'm going to show you the consistency here. Get a little closer. It's nice and soft, so it is a solid substance, but it's more like butter or shortening. And in my research, apparently that is the difference between the lard and the tallow. The lard will stay soft, the tallow will harden. So looks like we have a successful end product despite all of the hurdles and hiccups that I encountered. So it should show you, even with mistakes you make, this is definitely something that is doable and definitely a healthier option and a more sustainable option. So next time I do this, I think what I will change is definitely I'll keep the lard a lot more frozen when I go to cut it. It seems like the suet from the cows is a lot more forgiving, and it was just hard to cut. I'm not going to use the food processor next time. This definitely has a softer consistency than the suet I'm used to working with. So I'll keep my original fat more frozen, so it's easier to cut apart. The chunks I cut up, I'm definitely going to cut into smaller chunks. That'll take more time, but I do think it will speed up the process when it comes to melting down and rendering the lard. I'll probably do it at a little higher heat, not high, I don't want it to burn, not even medium, but my lowest setting on my oven was definitely too low. And I definitely next time want to get the proper materials to strain this, either a cheesecloth or the coffee filters, the metal coffee filters, which I don't have one, but I'd love to get one, even if it's just for this, to really get the impurities out. So that's what I would change for next time. I hope you enjoyed following me along and seeing all my hiccups and hurdles and seeing that even with mistakes, it's possible and it's very easy. And I definitely think next time will go a lot smoother and a lot quicker for me. So I hope you give it a try too, and hopefully my mistakes speeds up the process for you. Thanks for joining me.